Hello, I'm Francis Seeley from Enfield Climate Action Forum, and we held a forum meeting recently where we had a number of speakers. And one of those was Nnenna Anyanwu, and she is Chief Executive of Enfield Citizens Advice Bureau, CAB. And we interviewed her as part of a program which looked at climate change and how we can help those people who live in impoverished communities. Poverty is very rampant now throughout the country, and it is in Enfield as well. And those people who are worst affected by climate change are those who are impoverished. So tackling poverty is really important. And that's why we interviewed Nnenna, who works very hard on that, both in helping people and in campaigning. So first of all, we asked Nnenna, what is it the CAB does in Enfield?
So basically, I mean, I'm sure most people know Citizens Advice, but we do provide free advice for all the residents of Enfield. We're part of a national network of Citizens Advice offices in each borough around the country. And we provide advice on housing, benefits, debt, consumer issues, just generally quite a wide range of issues, but those are our three sort of core areas. So with the cost of living crisis, that has really impacted residents of Enfield, and the levels of poverty are actually quite high in the borough. We have had a very sharp increase in the number of people with negative budgets, as in they cannot make ends meet. They're not meeting, the income is not matching their expenses. And this has a great impact on the lives of families with children, because obviously, apart from not being able to afford food, there's elements in terms of school costs that they can't afford. People are having to use food banks and rely on charity support. So we do give out quite a few charity grants to residents to buy basic things, even things like nappies, getting a buggy for pregnant women. So we have different funds like that. So we are providing a lot of support around that, which are strong indicators of poverty.
Poverty affects many people, but some of those most affected are young people and particularly children. And the number of children affected by poverty is growing. Nnenna told us about this.
So just a few statistics I'll just bring in here. So the average wage, or the median wage in the UK, I believe, is about 37,000 a year, and in London that is supposed to be 47,000. And the marker for poverty is if you're earning less than 60% of that figure. And so the London living wage is like 25,000. And in London, that 60% of that figure is comes out to be 28,000. So already, even with that, people are on the marker of poverty if they're below 28,000. In Enfield, I think even in the Edmonton area, about 25% of people are on that salary, 25,000. So there's a lot of low income households in Enfield. It is a big, big, big challenge for people. And the housing costs are a major part of the expenses. So by the time you take out housing costs in Enfield, which is very high, the private sector, there isn't a lot left for people to live on. That is really creating um, big problems in the borough. Now, with the Citizens Advice, we've got five cost of living poverty indicators. One is the level of council tax arrears, high household costs, so energy costs, rents, those essential bills, high levels of charity support on food banks, people that are on PIP, claiming PIP, and people that have got unmanageable debts or negative budgets. So we've got, a lot of clients in that tick all of those boxes. So so I don't know if you know about the fact that the government is actually consulting or speaking about the welfare benefits reforms. One of them is changes to the PIP regulation, qualifications or eligibility criteria. And the other one is about child, the two-child limit and the benefit cap. So we have a campaign at the moment for the government to scrap the two-child benefit, two-child limit benefits in order to help these families. Because if you think that there's a limit on the total amount of benefits you can get, but the have just risen, so that the benefits that people are receiving are not in line with what they're having to spend out on basic essentials. And this is creating immediate poverty before you even start. And I can tell you that although some people may be thinking that, a lot of that is people on benefits, 51% of Londoners in poverty are actually working. So when you look at the poverty markers, and then in Enfield, there's 31% of children that are living in poverty.
Tackling poverty, like tackling climate change, really needs to be done in partnership with a number of organisations, and CAB is working in partnership, both in terms of giving people advice on their fuel energy and also on the whole area of housing and homelessness. Again, Nnenna tells us about this as well.
Our focus um, in as an organization is really looking at how we can help people to increase their income and reduce their costs so that they can live within their means, which is a struggle because we do have a lot of people that are doing all the right things but still not being able to make ends meet, which is it's actually really shocking. Obviously we're living in one of the top richest countries in the world, and people are living like this. But yeah, so part of that is giving energy advice and working in partnership with organizations that do that. So heat is one of them, and also looking at how we can well, we do a lot of campaigning around the housing policy, housing costs, private rented sector to see what can be done in that area. And I think you did mention about, and I've heard in conversations about the work we're doing with Local Motion and the homelessness. So that piece of research was really to find out what the problems, well, bring to the fore from the community what the problems were and possible solutions. And that all came from the research that we did with community groups. And basically, I'll just tell you that three of those, out of that research, we had three potential solutions. And obviously the biggest problem, people are saying we need to build more houses, but then it's like, where do we build those houses and how do we build those houses? Because you find out that when people say build more houses, then those houses then go back into the private sector. And do we need more private sector houses when people can't afford to live? And actually, Trust for London have got statistics that they released, I think, at the end of last year, showing that the number of people in poverty in social housing has gone down. Not that they're not in poverty, but the number's gone down. And that's partly because there's no social housing. And but then the people that are in private rented sector, the level of poverty's gone up, and that's because of the rents and people are just on the low incomes. So yeah, so the solutions that have come out of that were to build more houses, but we want community houses, or the community have said they want community-based houses or community-led. So potentially that is one area that we're exploring, where we look at using a vehicle called a community land trust, so that the community has more power in terms of the types of houses and keeping that in that sort of social rent bracket. The second solution that we came up with was was sort of wraparound support for people, because people do want to be empowered to be able to maintain and sustain their tenancies. But if they're having relationship difficulties or substance abuse or antisocial behavior, and they don't necessarily know how or where to get help, so having a stronger network of wraparound support. And then the third solution was what has been discussed quite a lot with the credit union work. So we are looking at creating a fund for people that, because one of the issues, the barriers to getting into to getting a property or moving house is about a guarantor or raising money for a deposit. And so having a fund where they can access that money as a sort of low cost loan, whilst at the same time being able to build their financial resilience through saving, that will hopefully help to get them into that into the rented sector. So it isn't necessarily. I know that I think it was Olga that mentioned it was in part people have done it in partnership with the local authority, and I do believe that the credit union has spoken to the local authority, but actually the people that we sort of identified through the discussions that could benefit from this are the ones that won't come under the local authority's responsibility. So they may not be necessarily interested in that, but it's people that are working and just need that little bit of help and support, and then don't come under the local authority's duty. So they wouldn't qualify for support anyway. Because if they did, the council's got a deposit scheme that they would give to those people. So we're still exploring ways that that can work financially. But yes, the credit union have got certain products and they're interested in that.
One of our members asked Nnenna about the fact that many people are moved out of the borough in order to find homes, and then they moved away from their community and their family, and that is a real problem. Nnenna commented on this.
The problem it is the fact that the council are moving people far away without necessarily having the right support in place. We ha The way we're working around it at the moment is, apart from it's a long range thing. I think it's not something that can be resolved, quite quickly. But for the individuals that come to us, we are challenging the council on the legal duty that they have of care to make sure that the right things are in place. And in the long term, we are trying to see how those policies can be changed. And also working with, so I think, there's some discussions going on about trying to do more campaigns to make sure that the right support, to raise the awareness basically of the support that should be in place so that people are aware and they do make those challenges. Unfortunately, it is very difficult in terms of housing at the moment, and the council are trying to relieve the responsibilities, and they're having to do it in different ways. So it's just about putting in a challenge and getting the grounds and the evidence for that.
One of the problems in this borough, as elsewhere, is that many people do not know what services exist. How do we create more awareness of this? How do we let people know what is available? Nnenna explains.
That Well, this is a piece of work that we're still doing to map all the services that are around. But we do have, for instance, if somebody's going through domestic abuse, there are organisations that can support with that. If there's some substance is an issue, or gambling, as has been mentioned, and we've also got, obviously, with our organisation that helps with advice in terms of what their rights are, and then we also have mental health charities as well. Now, the problem that I think is in Enfield is that the lack of awareness that those services exist and how to access them. So this is a piece of work that we want to do as part of Local Motion to really bring those organisations together and create a more joined up, or raise more awareness of what's there and what can help at different stages. And then also funding. So there is a lack of investment in those services as well, to be able to really reach the people that need it. So by hopefully bringing them together, highlighting the need, we can raise the profile. So, and this is a call to action. If anyone on here wants to be part of this, just drop your email or drop a message in the chat and I'll pick it up. But I think that's what I see anyway. The wraparound support, I think, is a very key thing for that can help to resolve some of these issues.
Nnenna believes, as many of us do, that housing is a human right. But Nnenna goes on to explain to us, although it's a human right, dealing with it and making it a human right faces many complications.
Yeah, I
Nnenna?
just wanted to say that, in addition to the fact that the private rented sector is the kind of main source of housing at the moment, so they can set the prices because it is, it's economics at the end of the day. They're in the business to make money. So we are campaigning, if you like, that housing shouldn't be seen as an economic asset. It should be
Absolutely.
seen as a human right. Everyone has a right to a
Yeah.
house. And so if we start from
Guaranteed.
that point, rather than seeing it as an economic asset to make money, because that is has actually crippled a lot of, I'll say, London, but this is just obviously my opinion, because you just want the maximum rent. And you can't, I don't want to blame the landlords because that's what they've gone into. But now we can see the problem on the other end. But then the council then has the issue of if they want to build houses, people that have gone to sort of leafy green areas to get the space will say you cannot build here. And so where is the space? They now will say they have challenges finding space. And obviously you've got the environmental impacts of building in certain places. So there's so many different dimensions is what I'm trying to say. It isn't just like a one way street for anything. I think there's lots of considerations around how you plan for the increase in population, the breakdowns in relationships, as you said, that triggered two new households, whereas it was one before. So where does the other person go? So all of these things have got implications for town planning and housing.
Poverty affects many, many people, and those in poverty face many problems. One of the issues that face us is how do we create more awareness about this? And how do we then tackle the problem? But creating awareness is essential. And this is something that Nnenna believes very strongly.
Say that yeah, absolutely. There isn't an upper limit on interest that you can charge if you're a lender. So, and that's crazy that the most poorest people can be charged whatever rate that a shark lender could want to do. So that's a real issue. But just another plug for the local motion. It's about maybe the community voice needs to be louder, so and organized. And if we are organized and we're louder, then we can probably try and start to change things, at least for Enfield, and then use that as a template for the rest of London.